Hello, my name is Roscam. I'm a doctoral candidate of Interaction Design at Malmö University's School of Arts and Communication, and today I'm presenting my exploratory paper on cultivating the installable base. This is an exploratory paper that adds further substance to ongoing discussions within the PD community on how to think PD's relation to socio-technical work. It does so by highlighting concrete points of intervention where PD practices can meaningfully contribute to technology design. These points are drawn from insights that I gained from an ongoing collaboration with a group of artist collectives which look to build their own alternative social and publishing environment. Using this collaboration as an example, it argues PD should contribute to the installable base of computational alternatives. The background to this paper is a discussion within PD of a few years ago on whether and how to recenter both the strong tradition of values-based and political work within PD, but also the technical nature of that work. Korsgaard, Klokmoose, Butker, in their 2000 paper, Putting the T Back into Socio-Technical Research, for example, call for PD to commit to the creation and research of computational alternatives. These they see as concrete technological artifacts and practices that, quote, make us see possible worlds alternative to the actual world. In addition, in a 2018 paper, Butker and King argue that PD ought to have a concern for influencing our common technological future, a process which, among others, calls for working with working prototypes as a concrete research outcome. To make my argument, the paper draws on the notion of an installed base drawn from Susan Leigh-Starr. To summarize, the installed base is the pre-existing context on which an infrastructure can be built. In the paper Information Infrastructures and the Challenge of the Installed Base, Anestad, Crisot, Hanset and Vasilakopoulou reflect on the notion of the installed base. They argue the installed base and infrastructures are not something which are just built, but which are instead grown over time out of and with existing installed base. The installed base is less a set of givens and more the preconditions which can actively be shaped. An installed base simultaneously enables and constrains the infrastructure that can emerge out of it. So what is interesting with regards to the previous discussion is to ask how PD research outcomes could concretely contribute to the cultivation of artifacts, systems and the preconditions that make up this installed base, and out of which computational alternatives can be developed. As mentioned, this paper draws its arguments from an experience of helping a group of artist collectives design and develop an online social and publishing environment. In the paper itself, I describe in detail the motivations of this group. It suffices to say here that the group had been ideating and sketching for a long time before I joined. However, the group had also reached an impasse, where further mock-ups or sketches were not actually helpful. That is because I didn't provide any boundaries or constraints to the process. At that point, I proposed to follow a method of installing and using pre-existing and fully functioning softwares as prototypes to test and try. These prototypes would allow the group to interactively test specific functionalities and desires, and with that inform the urgencies of the group, while at the same time having something in the sense of concrete feedback. To help facilitate the process further, we approached a technology worker cooperative to help. Together with them, over the course of several online meetings, we discussed the particular desires and needs and proposed different existing software applications that together offered a rough approximation of the desired functionalities. These applications were then installed, introduced and then tried out by the group. This allowed people to try a particular application and help confirm the direction of inquiry without having to commit to anything in particular. With this way of working, we had a system that allowed us to start addressing some of the questions that naturally followed from the mock-up sessions by practically investigating them. These pre-existing applications thus served as advanced prototypes. The goal of these sessions was not to find the ultimate software package which could satisfy all requirements, but rather to consider how different existing applications could fit together as an ecosystem of tools that together could be combined and integrated to form this online environment. Using these existing applications allowed for informed and concrete discussions about the platform's functionality, its governance and the future possibilities, and it allowed for more informed discussions on the constraints as well, both in terms of budgets, timelines and the prioritization of work. Noticeable in this process was that the existing body of different software applications, the installed base, that could potentially be installed and evaluated in this manner, thus came to represent the space of possibilities and directly helped participants imagine and test what the alternative environment could be like. The prototyping system described above was based on an architecture that allowed to quickly and easily stand up and evaluate different web applications. At the core of it lay a single sign-on system which held the account information of the participants and could be used to log into these different applications without needing to make new accounts all the time. The software packages themselves were all Free-Libre and Open Source software packages, as that philosophy overlapped with the value of the group. These packages included Nextcloud, an online office environment, PeerTube, a video archive and streaming software, and Mastodon, a microblogging software. These are all relatively mature applications with good technical and user documentation, healthy communities, and support for different languages and operating systems. This maturity is what helps being able to try them quickly. Regarding discussions on computational alternatives, softwares like the above closely mirror existing applications, but also modify fundamental parameters of those softwares, such as the ability to own your own data, to interconnect them with other groups, and to customize the software in various ways. These applications are thus valuable as a way to practically inform discussions on computational alternatives, as they provide concrete ways to try, modify, invert, or otherwise prototype with familiar genres of software. The fact that we were able to conduct this advanced materially informed inquiry was fully predicated on the existence and maturity of these softwares in the first place. This body of user-facing applications that can be installed on servers, phones, and other devices are quite concretely an installable base. This installable base is in essence a public repository of computational alternatives, which to a large degree influences how groups can practically interrogate and change the affordances of known genres of software for themselves. Cultivating this installable base should be one of the goals of PD. So what does such a cultivation look like? In our case, it took different shapes. We did the common FLOSS contributions, such as reporting bugs or clarifying parts of the documentation. Other times we did more extensive contributions, such as refining, testing, or even implementing the integration with the single sign-on provider. More involved still was the articulation and implementation of novel features to these different projects. We did so either ourselves or contracted the developers of these applications to do so. In particular, this last point is important, as contracting the original developers addresses some of the free labor issues which are rampant in the Free-Libre open source software ecosystem. But it also makes sure the changes are of a high quality and actually become part of the main project for the benefit of the larger user community. Establishing relationships with developers of computational alternatives can be a way to establish alliances with actors with roughly similar interests that would benefit of current and future collaborations. Similarly, establishing a relationship with the Worker Technology Cooperative could be seen as a way to cultivate the installable base, as it is a party which is actively engaging with the question of bringing about computational alternatives. The outcomes of the PD process thus not only resulted in increased knowledge and capacity for the parties involved, such as the group of art collectives, the Technology Worker Cooperative, or even the researcher himself, that's me. The outcomes also included the creation and improvement of concrete technical artifacts to the benefits of others outside of this particular PD process. A call such as the one in this paper obviously raises questions. The first one is who should be driving this work. Butker and Kung argue engaged partners should be driving it, and I argue along similar lines. It is meaningful to contribute to already existing projects as a way to expand the body of installable applications and their quality. However, the question is to what extent the values of those projects actually overlap with those of PD. Another question is on the nature of the contributions made. A lot of the ones we did in the course of the described process have been contributions that have been obvious, necessary, or otherwise low-hanging fruit. Because of this, these contributions have found easy acceptance in the software projects. However, what about other types of contributions, possibly those of critical of the course of the projects themselves? Another question is how to move beyond the transactional nature of FLOSS contributions and establish deeper relationships of support and interdependence between various parties. Finally, calls for computational alternatives might fundamentally go deeper than what FLOSS and especially existing projects might be able to offer. If one wishes to address the issues with Twitter, for example, perhaps an open source version of Twitter is not the way to go. This also highlights one of the shortcomings of the employed methodology. To come out of the impasse of mockups and sketches, it was very useful to be able to work with a catalog of pre-existing software applications. Considering the resources available to the projects, perhaps it was also absolutely necessary. However, these available options also strongly color what is possible and how the work is done. This risks favoring solutions over genuine inquiry into the needs and possibilities, and risks reinforcing pre-existing genres of software and their inbuilt assumptions. However, when one develops digital infrastructures, one always departs from an installed base. Recognizing this installed base as something which can be shaped and cultivated over time, and recognizing its role in allowing groups to reconfigure their relation with complex systems, whether inside PD collaborations or outside of them, is important. And I would say working on concrete technological artifacts is a way to facilitate this process. Thank you very much.